Section C06 of the RBT task list goes over implementing task-analyzed chaining procedures. So what is a behavior chain? A behavior chain is a sequence of isolated responses that is associated with a stimulus condition. All sequences of response end in reinforcement. A simple example to explain a behavior chain is making coffee or brushing your teeth. Did you make coffee this morning or brush your teeth? All of these behavior chains end in some sort of reinforcement. What is a task analysis? A task analysis involves breaking down a complex task or skill into smaller teachable steps. Task analysis should be individualized to teach each learner based off their skill level and prior experience the learner has. The steps that are incorporated into the task analysis should be skills that the learner already has in their repertoire. The three methods to identify components of task analysis are observing the learner perform the desired sequence of behaviors, consulting with individuals that are skilled in performing the skill and self-performing the task. When observing the learner, this helps the targeting certain steps to best teach the learner. You should always consult with others who may have more experience in teaching that skill or performing the targeted skill. Self-performing the task can help you note discrete steps within the task. Why is chaining important to teach? Chaining is important because this helps to increase independent living skills for individuals with developmental disabilities. A variety of behaviors can be used to perform a series of responses to assess positive reinforcement. Chaining can also be used to promote more complex repertoires. When using forward chaining procedures, these steps are broken down and are taught in their naturally occurring sequence. The reinforcement is delivered when the predetermined criteria for the first behavior in the sequence is achieved. Let's use washing hands as an example. The first step may be to turn on the faucet. Once the learner can perform that task, reinforcement will be delivered while all the rest of the task is taught to the learner. Once the learner can perform steps 1 and 2, reinforcement will be delivered for those tasks. We want to reinforce all successful steps to increase the likelihood of the behavior to occur in the future. You will continue with this procedure throughout the entire task until the learner can perform the entire task independently. Now that we have discussed forward chaining, let's talk about backwards chaining. This is the same concept as forward chaining, but backwards. The instructor will complete all the steps in the task except for the last step. The instructor will teach all the steps in the task, but letting the learner perform the last step in the sequence. Reinforcement will be delivered once the learner achieves the predetermined criteria. Let us use the example of hand washing again. The last step in the task may be throwing out a paper towel. The instructor will teach all the steps before throwing out the paper towel. But once that last step comes, the learner will perform that behavior and reinforcement will be delivered. Backwards chaining with leaps ahead is like the backwards chaining procedure. The only difference is that not all the steps in the task is taught. The purpose for backwards chaining with leaps ahead is to decrease the amount of training time that is needed to learn the task. Some learners may already know the certain steps in the task because it may already be in their repertoire, so no training is necessary. Although the learner may know those steps, they must complete all the steps to receive reinforcement for completing the task. Total task chaining is where the learner receives teaching throughout the entire task. Instructors will prompt when necessary for whichever steps the learner needs assistance with. Instructors will teach the learner until the learner has reached the predetermined criteria. Reinforce each step that the client achieves independently. Let's talk about a behavior chain with a limited hold. This is a sequence of behaviors that must be performed within the predetermined limit of time in order to achieve reinforcement. Let's use this example. A chef must cook the customer's food in a certain amount of time to make the customer satisfied. Behavior chains with limited holds are used for learners with accurate and proficient performance. Some learners may not be able to successfully complete a task in predetermined time limit, while some learners are able to do so. All behavior analytic trainers should always set their learners up for success.